In 1896, a single $250,000 check changed American history. It bought the President of the United States. The man who wrote it, John D. Rockefeller, would die the richest human being on Earth. At its peak, his company Standard Oil controlled 91% of all oil refining in America. It crushed 22 of 26 competitors in the city of Cleveland in less than 4 months. By 1902, Rockefeller personally owned wealth equal to 1% of the entire United States economy. And when the Supreme Court finally broke his empire apart in 1911, it made him even richer. But how does one company go from a single Cleveland refinery to owning American politics? How do you buy a president and end up with double the money after they break you up? This is the story of how Standard Oil rewrote the rules of power. It begins in 1865. The American Civil War had just ended. The country was rebuilding, and a new resource was changing everything: petroleum. In northwestern Pennsylvania, oil had been discovered just 6 years earlier. By 1865, the region was a chaotic boom of derricks, gushers, and overnight fortunes, and most of the men working there would die broke. In Cleveland, a 26-year-old bookkeeper named John D. Rockefeller decided he was going to control all of it. Rockefeller bought out his business partners that February. He later called it the day that determined my career. He understood something his competitors missed. The real money wasn't in pumping oil. It was in transporting and refining it. In 1868, he negotiated a secret deal with the Lakeshore Railroad. Standard Oil would receive a 71% discount on shipping rates. No competitor could match it. Most of them didn't even know it existed. By 1870, Rockefeller's company had a name. He called it Standard Oil, and he was about to declare war. The weapon was called the South Improvement Company. On paper, it was a shipping cooperative. In reality, it was a backdoor agreement between Rockefeller and 3 major railroads. The deal worked like this. The railroads would charge every refiner in America double the normal shipping rate, and then they would pay Standard Oil a kickback on every single barrel its competitors shipped. Within weeks, Cleveland's other refiners realized they could not survive. They could not match Standard Oil's costs. They could not even afford to ship their own oil to market. Rockefeller offered them a choice: sell to him at his price, or go bankrupt waiting. 22 of the 26 refineries in Cleveland sold to Standard Oil in less than 4 months. The newspapers called it the Cleveland Massacre. Rockefeller called it good business. He was just getting started. Over the next decade, Rockefeller did to the rest of America what he had done to Cleveland. By 1882, 40 separate companies had been pooled into a single legal entity. They called it the Standard Oil Trust. 9 trustees controlled it. Rockefeller was the chairman. The trust was worth $70 million, roughly $2 billion in today's money. By 1890, Standard Oil refined 88% of every barrel of oil produced in America. Within a decade, that number would reach 91%. By the 1890s, the public was furious. Newspapers ran cartoons of Standard Oil as a giant octopus, crushing American industry from the inside. In 1890, Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act. Its specific target was clear: the Standard Oil Trust. But the law went unenforced. For 16 years, no federal prosecutor would touch Standard Oil. Rockefeller had made sure of that. In the summer of 1896, a presidential election was approaching. The Republican candidate was William McKinley, the governor of Ohio. McKinley's campaign manager was a man named Mark Hanna. Hanna was a Cleveland industrialist, and he had been John D. Rockefeller's classmate as a boy. That summer, Rockefeller wrote Hanna a check for $250,000. In today's money, that is roughly $9.5 million, given by a single private donor to a single political campaign. McKinley won the election. He took office in March of 1897. Standard Oil would not face a single serious federal antitrust prosecution for the next 4 years. Then, in September of 1901, McKinley was shot at a public reception. He died 8 days later. His vice president was Theodore Roosevelt, and Roosevelt hated monopolies. Meanwhile, a journalist named Ida Tarbell began publishing a series of articles in McClure's magazine. She had grown up in Pennsylvania oil country. Her father had been one of the men Rockefeller destroyed. Her investigation ran for 19 consecutive monthly issues. It documented every secret rebate, every threatened competitor, every shadow deal. On May 15, 1911, the Supreme Court ruled 8-1. Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly. It would be dissolved into 43 separate companies. And here is the twist no one expected. Each of the 43 new companies issued its own stock. The prices began to climb. Rockefeller held shares in all of them. By 1913, his personal fortune reached $900 million, roughly $28 billion in today's money. The breakup had made him the richest man who has ever lived. The 43 companies are still here. Today we call them Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, BP, Amoco, and Marathon. Most of them have simply merged back together over the past 100 years. And in 2024, a federal court ruled that Google holds an illegal monopoly over internet search. The Department of Justice is now considering how to break it up. Big tech today donates billions to political campaigns. The playbook hasn't changed, only the price tag has. History does not repeat itself, but the patterns of power tend to rhyme. And the men who built Standard Oil understood something we are still learning today. When the system threatens to break a monopoly, it usually just renames it. Have you ever filled up at an Exxon or a Mobil without realizing you were buying from what was once the largest monopoly in American history? Tell us in the comments, which company do you think will be the next Standard Oil? If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe for more like it. We will see you in the next one.